What's going on, guys? It's Justice here. So what is the new meta for doing Araxxor? There's been a few methods being tried out here and there from different people, and I was trying out kiting yesterday as well. And this works well with magic. So could magic be the new meta? It could be for path 1 and 3 if you're taking the third path. That's for the bottom leg piece. What you can do is if you're far enough away from Araxxor and you've got him aggroed onto you, he'll keep trying to go after you, but because you're out of distance, he won't be able to actually attack you with melee hits, and therefore you can just DPS him with your magic spells. So you can kite Araxxor back down to phase 1 area. So what you do is when phase 3 starts, after the darkness and all of those different specials that you've had to counter, as soon as phase 3 starts, you'll both be at the top end of that path, and then the person who it's targeted on will surge away. But what you want to be doing first is, because you've got a few auto attacks before the special actually hits, before he spawns all of his minions, you want to try and get a bit of DPS out. So it's probably best to at least asphyxiate and then put a bleed onto Araxxor before you surge away, and the pros out there might be able to squeeze in a wild magic as well. But you just don't want to risk too much with the specials because you don't want the minions spawning. So then the person who is aggroed on would then run up the path up that path back to the phase 1 area, and with the right DPS rotation you do have a good chance of getting Araxxor down before any specials, and you should be able to get him down, before he switches to your partner. Once you move into phase 4, that's when it gets a bit complicated though. So the kiting method does take a lot of time to get used to. It's a bit weird, and I was doing it with a mate. We're fairly casual at doing it, and it was the first time we tried it, and it just kept switching here and there, and you do need to get used to when to evoke it, you need to get used to when to surging away, but you do get a feel for it over time. Now the guy I was doing it here, he was quite new to doing Duo Araxxor and stuff like that, and I was new to this method as well, but we've definitely got the potential to get it laid down, and this method definitely works. So a lot of this is theoretical, which I'm commenting because I haven't got a great kill to show you because I've run out of time, but it's proven that it will work because I managed to solo phase 4 and get up below 50k life points with the revenge method on a Duo Araxxor kill. So it will work. It just takes some practice, and I'm just going to show some background footage, but a lot of this is theory at the moment. The reason why I know this works is because I think people were using this method anyway before the anti-walking patch came out, because this was actually supposed to be the fastest way of doing this path anyway. It's just people chose to do Joe's Scythe because it was easier. But yeah, run out of time because the rotation changed and I couldn't show you the kill before I go to Runefest. But yeah, I mean, for the average PVMer, you're going to struggle to do this method, and it will take a lot of practice because we were struggling anyway, and the mass majority of people listening to this video will have a lack of experience with Duo Araxxor anyway, so you're going to struggle. It just takes practice, and just stick with it. And it can be very fun because you're using different sort of mechanics and using revenge, and well, to be honest, to do this we did have to use Rebounder. So yeah, they're like, I don't know how much they are, like 150 plus mil. So it is this method, the problem with this one is that it is quite niche in the accessibility that it offers to players, and that was so good about the scythe. Yes, it was like a 250 mil weapon, but it was a one-off item that you just bought and you could just DPS with it. So there is downsides to using the magic method, and this is something I'm still learning. I need to get my head around it, and I ran out of time in the aspect of the rotation changed and I wasn't able to give it another go. Let me know what your thoughts are. If you've got this method laid down, do you like doing it? Are you getting consistent kills with it? How difficult did you find it to practice it, to help other people? Maybe a few pointers here and there. But overall, saying this is the new meta is not completely true because people used to do this, I think, in the aspects of the revenge method in phase 4. This is going to be the method moving forward that people are going to use more often, I think, on this rotation for the ones who have access to these different items. Okay, so that was looking at magic as a possible new meta for path 3 when doing Duo Araxxor. I'm now going to have a look at when you want to take path 1, where you'll want to be using the Noxious Scythe still. Okay, so I'm going to walk you through both perspectives now for this Duo Scythe Araxxor method. Essentially, you're alternating Zerks to maximize your DPS, and so you're having to carry each other. Before, you could potentially get carried by a duo partner. Now with this method, you both have to carry each other at set times throughout the fight, making it more difficult for some. I'll show you from both perspectives. This perspective is going to be where you're Zerking out in phase 3 and you're going to have to carry to make sure a mirrorback does not spawn. So you want to burn the web at the beginning, you want to activate your Scrimshaw's Aura Pot's anti-poison. Realize I did not activate my Scrimshaw, as you can see from the previous video. If you look at the debuff and buff bars, You want to be using storm shards at every possible interval. You want to be using them every time they're off cooldown. You want to then use basics. You want to freedom and anticipate, to make sure you're countering those special attacks which come every 5 autos. Always put on shards though, it's really important when off cooldown. 4 shards is enough, but you can get up to 6 shards if you put them on when running up phase 2 as well. Then just carry on DPSing phase 1 like normal. It's a pretty easy phase, using just a couple of thresholds here and there, making sure you're 100% adren before the start of phase 2. Either one of you can phase it to phase 2 as well, but make sure you phase it directly after a special attack. This is vitally important. This allows you time to DPS it before the egg spawn in phase 2. So the health is pretty low at the moment, and Araxxor is about to spec on screen with a web, if I remember correctly. So we'll just wait for that. Essentially, it depends what spec, Araxxor decides to do, but in this case, he does decide to web. So this is actually quite a good thing right now, because as you can see, Buffy's about to tag it into phase 2, and it's going to be really good timing because he's going to tag it right after he comes out of the web before he does any auto attacks. I think he gets 1 auto attack in. Nope, he doesn't get any in. So he times it just right. And essentially this gives you more time, which is good. So at this point, Buffy's going absolutely crazy with his Zerks and stuff like that. You want to be prioritizing your Blood Tendrils and Assault, and at least get those 2 thresholds out, and then just use basics and start building once again. At this point, you want to Voke Araxxor onto you, as you saw me do there, when the eggs spawn, and run away up the path 1, the top path. Now you're going to be tagging it over to phase 3 at this point. You both want to surge out, but just keep clicking away when you do surge, otherwise you get that issue where your character just runs back automatically. So just keep clicking away and you will surge towards phase 3. So as you can see, as soon as you get past that line of small little legs on the top path there, you'll phase it to phase 3. You then want to run back together. At this point, you want to Zerk as you tag it over and use an Adren pot and start building once again. Okay, so you're going to use at least cleave here, a few basics, and you want to build up to above 65+% adren. At that point, you can then use assault. So prioritize assault as your first threshold, and then you want to shatter towards the end. So once your assault finishes completely, make sure you use the shatter ability, which you'll see me do here, and that should hit a decent sized hit. Sometimes, there is a chance it will splash and then you're completely screwed, but most of the time it will hit, especially if you're using like Brawler Aura and Zerk Aura and things like that. But at that point, you should be able to charge up to 6 shards actually. When I was doing it with Buffy, we were only doing 4. When I was doing it with another duo partner, Chewie, we managed to get it up to 6 shards, and you can get it to 6, so you should aim for that. Phase 4 is when you get carried. If you're doing this role, you want to use Disruption Shield at the beginning, activate your Soul Link, which is a fantastic prayer to use here, and it halves the damage that you take if one of you miss a prayer switch. Just use thresholds here. Your role is just to use thresholds. Prioritize again the main thresholds like Assault, Hurricane, Blood Tendrils can be good on this phase now, and you will drop it because your teammate is zerking out, and I'll actually do that perspective for you and show you that role on the next kill. So that's pretty much the first perspective. Now, what does make this fight interesting now is that you are having to alternate roles a little bit differently. You're not doing the same role together, and like I said, you can't just get carried by someone because at some point throughout that fight, you are having to carry. Personally, the role I'm doing right now on screen, the one I've done here, I find this one easier than the other one. The role which I'm about to show you, it took me a little bit more time to adjust to it. So this role coming up next is more difficult in my opinion, but closer to the original method, mostly due to the double Zerk and the thresholds without Zerk in phase 3, and you're having to carry 2 times throughout the fight. If you don't do enough DPS in phase 2, then you are both getting screwed over in phase 3, where the mirror back will probably spawn because Araxxor will just regenerate too much health because you haven't DPS'd enough in phase 2. Alright, so let's go. Let's look at this next role now. One really important thing to know, only surge in this phase when I tell you when to surge here. Only surge in this phase if or when Araxxor switches to you, to minimize any auto attacks on you. That's really important to know here, because if you surge too early or too late, that really messes up the auto attacks that are going to be onto you. And essentially, the whole of this method, you're just trying to minimize those for, try and prolong the time that you've got to DPS in phase 3 before the mirror back spawns. So phase 1, just use basics like normal. This is going to be normal speed now. Use the odd threshold at the beginning. And if you look at that orange bar at the top where the little red marker is, that's if you hover over that, it'll give you the enrage. But that bar is the timer for the web, right? So when that bar hits 70% charged, when that bar's charged up to 70%, use Natural Instinct. That's a 100% ultimate ability on defensives. That allows you to charge up your adrenaline quicker. So you want to be charging your adrenaline up, and you want to use that Natural Instinct adrenaline gain whilst you're zerking to get to your thresholds quicker. So at 70%, you'll notice me switch over to my Vigor any minute in a second. I think I use Freedom first. There's my Freedom. And I use Natural Instinct. Luckily it cleaved, which to be honest, I was pretty happy about that, because now I can just keep charging my adrenaline with my Natural Instinct. Either way though, if it did web, you'd have to just use defensives to charge up. So I get to 100%, I use Zerk, I use Anticipate first to prevent the special, I use Zerk within my Sun Spear switch, and then it webs. Now again, not the end of the world. My teammate again was able to switch it over. Just keep using your defensive, maybe Surge, Escape, just to keep your adrenaline up, and then go on and attack. Obviously this was not ideal. Because of that web and everything like that, my Natural Instinct ran out, and it wasn't the most ideal rotation, but still managed to get my Assault and Hurricane out within my Zerk, which is the most important thing. I then also decided to use Slaughter as well, which can be really nice because Araxxor's already naturally walking, and you'll get a nice Slaughter on there. I think I've had like a 3012 Slaughter before, which is great. As you saw, Araxxor switched to me straight away. As soon as he switched, I surged away. He doesn't always switch to you, but if he does like that, you want to surge away as he switches to you. Then run back together, auto attack, and then ability to get that initial adrenaline gain. And at this point, again, you're being carried now. So at this point, you're just using thresholds. I would say make sure you're using like Blood Tendrils and Assault, or at least Assault and Hurricane, and then just keep using basics at that point. And make sure that you build to 100% adrenaline before the start of phase 4. That's really, really important. You need 100% adrenaline at this point because you're going to be carrying Soul Link, Disruption Shield activated, and you want to Zerk with the Sun Spear switch. Adrenaline pot, make your way up to Assault, so charge your adrenaline up to Assault. And you want to use Assault when you're above 60% adrenaline, around 65+%. I used Assault. And then I use Hurricane. You will notice in this phase, I did use the method of Duo-Zerk. I used the Duo-Zerk method here, where I cancel my Assault early in Hurricane. But to be honest, as you're solo carrying, you do preferably want to be using Hurricane first, and then play out the entire Assault. But other than that, that's the method, guys, and hopefully that will help you achieve some efficient duo Araxxor kills. And it does take some time to get that method laid down, and it is going to require you to really learn your DPS rotations. And again, this ain't going to be a perfect way of doing it. You know, I probably made a lot of mistakes in that video, but overall, this method works and it gets you kills, and that's all that matters right now. And again, you can make this method more efficient yourself through practice and effort, but I've been doing this for a couple of days now. It works okay for me, just takes some practice. So yeah, this method here, or what I've managed to complete within this video, is a combination of watching other people that have really helped me out. I'm going to leave those sources of information in the description below. It's also from talking to a lot of people throughout the community. This is like a generic method now, which is being used across the high tier PVM community. And then of course, just discussing with friends whilst trying out the method, because you can watch it, but then putting it into practice is a completely different thing. I wanted to show it from two different perspectives. Hopefully you learned something from it. All right, so just to wrap up and summarize this video in terms of talking about the magic method and the melee method. Good thing about using magic as well, if it is going to be the new meta, you'll have a higher chance of getting the Fang drop, which is currently the highest profit hilt that you can get, which is pretty damn good. But whether that's going to go down or not, I'm not quite sure. Duo Scythe is still a viable method, as I've said here, so the prices will probably balance out. I'm not sure whether the Fang will be the most profitable in the future. For the more casual PVMers out there, though, who won't be able to exploit the revenge method, it's advised, again, just use the Scythe, kill the mirror back and pulsing that spawn with AoEs before entering phase 4, and then just follow the insta-Zerk method. Basically, what I've been using on stream for a long time, you just Zerk it out, you adren pot straight away, you both use Assault, and it's dropped down so quickly, it's ridiculous. So anyway, hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. Just a quick discussion on, what could be the new meta here for this boss fight due to the walking changes. I might have a look at Virago later on. Not much has changed with that though. Might upload a video though with an extra discussion if I feel it's worth it. Either way, thank you very much for listening, and I'll see you in the next one.